Welcome to the deep dive. If there's one phenomenon that seems to loom large in our collective consciousness, fueling anxieties and, well, countless online discussions, it's the topic of infidelity.
hmm It really is everywhere, isn't
It
it?
feels like it. You can barely scroll through your short-form video feeds or browse online forums without encountering, a dramatic narrative or a heated debate about a relationship just shattered by cheating.
It does feel omnipresent sometimes.
Yeah, omnipresent.
Yeah.
From those viral caught in the act scenarios to like the quiet whisper network among friends, it creates this pervasive sense that perhaps all relationships are inherently fragile, perpetually on the brink of collapse.
And that can be really anxiety-inducing for people, even if their own relationship is stable.
Totally. And what's particularly unsettling about infidelity, I think, is the common perception that it often emerges from nowhere.
Right. The out-of-the-blue feeling.
Exactly. One day, everything seems fine, maybe even great, and the next, your world is just irrevocably altered. It evokes such a powerful, almost primal emotional response in those who experience it, and even in those who just observe it.
Absolutely. It hits a very deep nerve.
But here's the central perplexing question that really lies at the heart of this deep dive. If a relationship is truly struggling, if the connection is faltering, why do individuals often resort to cheating instead of simply, well, engaging in an honest conversation and, if necessary, ending the partnership?
That's the core puzzle, isn't it?
It is. Isn't a direct breakup the more straightforward, perhaps even less painful path for everyone involved in the long run? This enduring mystery of human behavior is precisely what we aim to unravel today.
hmm
We're going to move beyond those, superficial assumptions and delve into the profound psychological theories that offer genuinely surprising and, I think, illuminating answers.
That's such an insightful framing of the puzzle. And yeah, it directly addresses the sheer volume of these narratives in our culture. We are indeed constantly bombarded with these dramatic, highly emotional depictions of infidelity.
It feels like a flood sometimes.
It does. And it can easily lead us to believe that such betrayal is far, far more common than it actually might be in reality. This constant exposure creates a certain cognitive bias, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, it makes these often sensationalized incidents feel like the norm rather than, the painful exceptions they often are. Yet when we step back and actually observe the stable, healthy relationships in our own lives and among our friends, the reality is frequently quite different.
That's true. Most people aren't living in a constant state of relationship drama.
Exactly. So while infidelity is undeniably a source of immense pain for many, it's crucial to distinguish between that anecdotal evidence, however widespread it seems online, and the broader, more representative trends of human relationships.
Okay, so separating the noise from the signal, essentially.
Precisely. Yeah. So to genuinely understand the underlying reasons why cheating occurs, and maybe why it appears so prevalent in our digital spaces, we need to move beyond these surface-level observations.
Right.
The answers, as we'll explore, are often deeply rooted in fundamental human development, in the patterns established in our earliest experiences, actually,
Way back.
way back, and in how those formative influences continue to shape our adult behavior, our capacity for genuine connection, and, crucially, our navigation of relationship challenges.
Okay.
And I know this topic can be incredibly sensitive, obviously, but gaining a deeper understanding of it is absolutely vital if we aspire to navigate our own relationships with greater awareness, build more secure and resilient connections, and ultimately foster stronger, healthier bonds in our lives.
Absolutely. Let's delve right into that pervasive narrative we just touched upon because it really does shape our perception, doesn't it?
It really does.
It's truly remarkable how much our collective understanding of relationships can be skewed by this relentless exposure to dramatic cheating stories. As you mentioned, social media feeds, online forums, anonymous confession sites, they're just saturated with tales of betrayal.
Often sensationalized for clicks or views.
Exactly. Sensationalized for maximum engagement. This constant stream of anecdotal evidence, particularly when it's so emotionally charged, can create an overwhelming sense that every relationship is on shaky ground.
Like it's inevitable.
Yeah, like it's somehow doomed to fail from the outset, regardless of the effort or love involved. It cultivates this pervasive fear, a kind of relational paranoia that validates anxieties about trust and commitment before a relationship even truly begins.
It sets a negative expectation.
It really does.
Mm-hmm.
But if we take a moment to pause, step back from the screen, and observe our real-world surroundings, like you said, the picture often changes. While, of course, infidelity is a painful reality for many, it isn't necessarily the universal experience that this digital echo chamber might suggest. Most people you know, yourself included probably, likely have stable, committed relationships in their lives, or know people who do.
Right. The reality on the ground often looks different from the online narrative.
And yet, despite this personal reality, that nagging fear persists for many, that dark cloud suggesting all relationships are inherently fragile.
Yeah.
So the question remains, maybe even more pointedly, why, despite this deep-seated fear of betrayal, and despite the seemingly simpler and more honest alternative of just breaking up, does cheating continue to persist in the way it
Yeah,
does?
what are the deeper forces at play?
Exactly.
That's precisely where the psychological impact of media consumption becomes clear. When a significant portion of the content you consume, especially over extended periods, is made up of dramatic, emotionally charged, caught-in-the-act videos or, detailed accounts of infidelity.
Right, the stuff that goes viral.
Exactly. It naturally validates and intensifies any pre-existing anxieties you might harbor about relationships. It reinforces a skewed worldview, causing these often outlier events to feel like the norm, even if your personal experience or the broader statistical reality doesn't align with it.
Okay, so it taps into existing fears.
It does. It's a classic case of the availability heuristic, basically. If something is easily recalled and frequently presented, we perceive it as more probable. The online world, by its very design, often curates content for maximum emotional impact and virality, not necessarily for accurate representation of complex human relationship dynamics.
That makes a lot of sense.
So to truly understand the why behind cheating, we need to look far beyond these superficial observations of what we see scrolling through our feeds.
Okay.
We must delve into something far more foundational, the way we develop our most fundamental relational patterns from a very young age.
Ah, so back to childhood again.
Back to childhood. This leads us directly to the profound and, I think, deeply insightful realm of attachment theory. It's a concept that fundamentally changes how we understand adult relationships.
Right.
It helps us see how our earliest experiences with receiving or maybe not receiving consistent love and care literally shape our brains and dictate our behavior in all our connections later in life.
And this brings us to attachment theory, which, yeah, is truly a powerful lens for understanding a huge range of relationship behaviors, including, maybe surprisingly for many, infidelity.
Definitely.
The core premise here is incredibly impactful, and once you grasp it, it really changes how you view human connection. It's this idea that the quality of love, attention, and consistent care you received as a child, or perhaps the lack of it,
The consistency is key.
right, consistency, that profoundly shapes your adult mentality, your emotional regulation, and consequently your relational patterns. It's about how those initial bonds formed with parents or primary caregivers set a deep, often unconscious template for how you seek, form, and maintain connections throughout your entire life.
It's like the blueprint.
Exactly, the blueprint. And this theory, it's backed by decades of research, outlines three main attachment styles. First, you have the secure attachment style.
The ideal, in many ways.
Generally considered the ideal, yeah. The nurtured style. It emerges from an environment where a child's needs were consistently met with responsiveness, empathy, availability. As an adult, this translates into relationships built on trust, open communication, healthy emotional regulation, and just a fundamental sense of security in oneself and the connection.
They're comfortable with closeness, but also okay with independence.
Exactly. Comfortable with both intimacy and independence. Then we move to the two insecure styles, which are apparently far more prevalent than most people realize.
Way more common, yes.
The first is anxious attachment. This style often forms when parents or caregivers were inconsistent in meeting a child's needs, maybe sometimes responsive and warm, other times distant or dismissive.
Unpredictable.
Unpredictable. This teaches the child that they must constantly strive for attention and reassurance to maintain that connection. As adults, this can manifest as a deep-seated fear of abandonment.
A really core fear.
Yeah, leading to what some describe as clinginess, a constant need for external validation, an overwhelming preoccupation with the relationship's status, and a tendency to sort of overthink every interaction. They might be highly sensitive to perceived slights or distance.
Always scanning for signs of rejection.
And finally, the other insecure style is avoidant attachment. This typically results from a childhood where care was either largely absent, consistently inconsistent, or perhaps even actively dismissive of the child's emotional needs.
So the child learns not to rely on others.
Exactly. The child learns early on that relying on others for comfort or support is futile, maybe even dangerous. So they learn to suppress their emotional needs and cultivate extreme self-reliance. In adulthood, Individuals with an avoidant style often struggle significantly with intimacy, emotionally pushing people away when relationships get too close. They might value independence to an extreme degree, struggle to express vulnerability, and have difficulty accepting that their needs can genuinely be met by others, often feeling smothered, right?
Yeah, closeness can feel threatening, and it's crucial, as you said, to understand that both anxious and avoidant attachment styles are incredibly common in the adult population, impacting a vast number of relationships. Many people listening right now likely identify with aspects of these.
That's a really sobering thought.
It is, and that's a truly critical point because these childhood experiences aren't just fleeting memories. They are, in essence, neurologically frozen and deeply internalized in our brains. They create a default sense of safety, or maybe more often, unsafety.
Like a setting you can't easily change.
Pretty much. A fundamental blueprint for how relationships are supposed to feel, even if that feeling is deeply unhealthy. If you grew up experiencing inconsistency, neglect, or emotional unavailability, your brain becomes accustomed to that feeling of chronic unsafety or needing to rely only on yourself.
So that becomes your normal.
It becomes your default, your unconscious comfort zone, even if it's incredibly detrimental to your well-being. This deeply ingrained pattern then manifests in adulthood in very specific and often self-sabotaging ways.
Okay, how does that play out specifically?
Well, for someone with an anxious attachment style, that childhood inconsistency translates into an almost unshakable fear of abandonment. They might become overly clingy, constantly seeking validation and reassurance.
Which can push partners away sometimes.
Ironically, yes. It's not necessarily because they want to be demanding, but because deep down they're terrified their partner will leave them, echoing the unreliable presence of early caregivers. This fear can drive them to seek validation elsewhere if they perceive their primary partner isn't providing enough reassurance.
Ah, so that's a potential link to cheating right there.
It's one potential pathway, yes, often leading to emotional or even physical infidelity in a desperate attempt to feel wanted and secure, even if it's only fleetingly.
Wow. Okay, and for the avoidance style.
On the flip side, for someone with an avoidant attachment style, that early experience of absent or inconsistent care leads them to develop these powerful self-protective mechanisms. They push people away.
Keep them at arm's length.
Exactly. They're not accustomed to having their needs met consistently, so they develop an ingrained discomfort with vulnerability and deep intimacy. This can lead to infidelity as a way to create emotional distance when a relationship starts to feel too close, too demanding, or too vulnerable.
So cheating to sabotage the closeness.
In a way, yes. It's a mechanism to sabotage the connection, ensuring they don't have to rely too heavily on anyone, or simply to avoid the discomfort of sustained intimacy. They might seek fleeting connections to satisfy physical needs without engaging emotionally, thereby maintaining their perceived independence.
That sounds incredibly lonely, actually.
It often is. So in the simplest yet most profound terms, insecure attachment in childhood fundamentally creates insecurity in adulthood. It's not that these individuals consciously choose to be insecure or to sabotage their relationships. It's that their foundational understanding of relationships and emotional safety was shaped by those early experiences.
They're running an old program.
That's a great way to put it. They revert to what feels familiar, even if that familiar pattern is inherently unhealthy and leads to deep personal pain and relational conflict. This ingrained insecurity profoundly influences how individuals with these attachment styles navigate the inevitable challenges and obstacles that arise in any relationship,
Right.
often setting the stage for destructive behaviors like infidelity.
And here's where it gets truly fascinating, right? Because these deeply ingrained insecurities, those core templates for connection born from our attachment styles, they dramatically impact how someone handles the everyday struggles and natural friction of a relationship.
The day-to-day stuff.
Yeah. We're talking about common disagreements, clashing mindsets, the inevitable moments of jealousy, or maybe periods of emotional distance that every long-term partnership encounters. For someone operating from a place of insecure attachment, their default way of thinking, as we just discussed, often leads them down a path of heightened anxiety, overthinking, pervasive self-sabotage, and yes, an increased likelihood of engaging in or experiencing infidelity. It's like their internal alarm system is constantly blaring, right? Even when there's no immediate danger.
Yeah, a hypervigilance.
Which causes them to react in ways that ultimately undermine the very connection they either crave or are struggling to maintain.
It's a tragic cycle sometimes.
It really is. You've likely seen those viral cheater gets caught videos that seem to be everywhere online.
Oh, yeah. Hard to avoid.
Hard to avoid.
Uh,
And while they're often unsettling and, frankly, ethically questionable in their public display, they sometimes offer a raw, albeit dramatic, illustration of these dynamics in action.
They do, yeah.
Think about the typical behaviors you observe in those situations. The desperate crying, the explosive temper tantrums, the aggressive deflection of blame, the sheer emotional immaturity and inability to take responsibility.
It's quite raw emotion on display.
It is. They often act, for lack of a more precise term, like children in distress, overwhelmed by the emotional fallout and utterly incapable of adult accountability.
You're absolutely right. Those videos, despite their sensationalism, can be incredibly revealing when analyzed through this lens of insecure attachment.
Mm.
Consider, for instance, a common scenario we've all probably witnessed online. Someone caught in the act of infidelity,
Hmm.
desperately expressing a profound fear of abandonment, maybe crying about "don't leave me," and then in a striking paradox, immediately accusing their partner of being the one who's abandoning them or somehow at fault.
Right. The projection is intense.
Intense projection. This profound cognitive dissonance, this intense projection of their own fears and insecurities onto their partner is incredibly telling.
So what does it tell us?
Well, what's deeply insightful here is that much of this projecting and deflecting we witness in those high-stakes caught-in-the-act moments is often less about blatant, calculated manipulation,
Which is how it sometimes looks.
which is how it looks, yes. But it might be more a byproduct of deeply ingrained self-sabotage, fueled by unaddressed insecurity. It stems from a profound feeling of being emotionally unfulfilled or unheard within the relationship, coupled with a fundamental learned inability to voice those concerns effectively, directly, or maturely.
Because they never learned how.
Exactly. It's important to remember, nobody is born fearing abandonment 24/7, nor is it inherent human nature to instinctively push people away when intimacy deepens. These are, as you rightly pointed out, nurtured traits. They're learned responses to early environments that lacked consistent security, safety, or healthy emotional modeling.
They learn unhealthy coping mechanisms.
Precisely. When individuals lack the capacity or the courage to process their feelings healthily, when they can't articulate their needs, fears, or dissatisfactions directly to their partner, it breeds immense, simmering resentment.
That resentment piece feels huge.
It's enormous. This unexpressed anger, frustration, or disappointment doesn't simply dissipate. It ferments silently like poison, slowly and needlessly destroying a connection from the inside out. Instead of confronting the issues head-on, they might unconsciously create a crisis through infidelity.
Like forcing the issue.
Yes, a desperate, often clumsy attempt to either escape the discomfort of the relationship or to force a confrontation they don't know how to initiate directly. This inability to process and communicate feelings in a healthy way is almost always where the relationship truly begins to unravel, paving the way for infidelity.
That's a crucial connection to make because it brings us directly to what is, in fact, the most consistently documented cause of cheating for both men and women. A profound breakdown or a fundamental lack of authentic emotional connection within the primary relationship.
Comes back to connection time and again.
It really does. It's rarely about just superficial things or always about some grand, dramatic falling out. More often than not, it's this quiet, insidious erosion of intimacy, understanding, and emotional resonance that leaves a void.
The slow drift apart.
But then the logical question becomes, why does this breakdown in connection happen so frequently? If connection is so vital, why do so many relationships end up feeling disconnected?
Good question.
And the answer, far too often, circles back to poor communication. Think about the common destructive pattern we've all observed, or perhaps even fallen into ourselves. Bottling up feelings, avoiding confrontation at all costs.
The silent treatment, maybe.
Yeah, or just letting anger, disappointment, and dissatisfaction marinate in your mind for weeks, months, or even years. It's a guaranteed recipe for disaster, where small, manageable issues balloon into seemingly insurmountable resentments simply because they're never actually brought to the surface, acknowledged, and addressed.
They fester.
They absolutely fester.
What's truly fascinating here is how this fundamental inability to communicate openly, honestly, and express oneself directly links so powerfully back to insecure attachment.
Okay, connect those dots for us.
If, for instance, an individual never felt safe expressing their true feelings, needs, or boundaries growing up, perhaps their parents dismissed their emotions, punished them for showing vulnerability, or were simply unavailable emotionally.
So expressing needs felt dangerous or pointless.
Exactly. Then as an adult, it feels instinctively easier, quote-unquote, to avoid confrontation. Their brain, remember, is wired for what's familiar. And for many with insecure attachment, what's familiar is silence, suppression, or active avoidance of difficult conversations.
Even though it's destructive long term.
Even though it's incredibly destructive to relational intimacy, you can often hear it foreshadowed in relationships with that insidious passive-aggressive phrase. I just think it's funny
Oh,
how
I know that one. Danger signal.
total danger signal. That innocuous-sounding opener is frequently a precursor to an explosive outburst, where months, sometimes even years of pent-up feelings, grievances, and unspoken resentments are suddenly unleashed in a torrent of blame and accusation.
It's like a dam breaking.
Exactly. It's a verbal assault, a toxic emotional dump, and arguably the most damaging and ineffective way to convey your thoughts or address legitimate concerns within a partnership. This unexpressed resentment, this marination of unresolved anger and hurt, truly drains the life out of and needlessly destroys a connection that could otherwise be salvaged and thrive.
It makes so much sense. And what about talking to friends instead of the partner?
Ah, yes. Another profoundly damaging pattern we frequently observe is when individuals vent all their frustrations and relationship problems to friends, family, or even online strangers.
Getting validation from outside.
Right, sharing only their biased side of the story without ever communicating directly and maturely with their partner. This creates a false sense of validation and temporary emotional release, sure, but it does absolutely nothing to address the actual issues within the relationship itself.
It avoids the real work.
Completely avoids it. It's a common yet profoundly damaging pattern that bypasses the very person who needs to hear and address the concerns in order for any real progress to be made. And this brings us to another closely related psychological concept that further elucidates how our childhood experiences continue to profoundly influence our adult relationships,
Okay.
ultimately leading to these significant communication breakdowns and the potential for infidelity.
That's a perfect segue because it ties directly into a concept that's become much more widely discussed and understood in recent years,
Yeah.
the inner child.
Very relevant here.
Now, while the term might conjure certain pop psychology stereotypes for some, at its core, it's a robust psychological idea that's quite similar to attachment theory in its fundamental premise. It posits that we all retain and carry the deeply ingrained traits, emotional responses, and even insecurities formed during our childhood into our adult lives.
It's that younger part of us that's still present.
Exactly. It's not about literally being a child, but about the persistent, unconscious patterns and emotional reflexes that were established in those highly formative years.
Right.
The truly fascinating part is when these inner child traits are most intensely revealed. They tend to surface most profoundly when we feel the safest, most vulnerable, and most unconditionally accepted.
Which is often with our romantic partner.
Arguably, yes, the people we feel safest and most vulnerable around are our romantic partners. Think about it. Why do so many couples sometimes engage in playful baby talk with each other or act like children together, being silly, playfully whiny, or completely uninhibited?
Letting their guard down.
Exactly. It's because in that secure space, they feel safe enough to let down all their adult guards and allow those very raw, authentic, sometimes immature parts of themselves, that inner child, to emerge. It's often a sign of profound trust, comfort, and deep intimacy.
Exactly. This inner child, then, profoundly influences our thoughts, our emotional reactions, and our actions when we're with our partner. It's almost as if that child version of ourselves is sitting invisibly on our shoulder.
Whispering in our ear.
Yes, whispering thoughts and feelings that subtly or overtly guide our adult responses. And here's the critical, often painful point. If that inner child experienced significant insecurity or trauma, meaning if those childhood experiences were marked by profound inconsistency, emotional neglect, or outright trauma.
If they didn't feel safe or loved consistently.
Precisely. If you did consistently feel safe, seen, heard, or deeply loved as a child, then those unaddressed emotional wounds and underdeveloped coping mechanisms can subtly yet powerfully sabotage the adult connection.
How does that sabotage happen?
Well, it creates an unconscious internal blueprint where a truly healthy, secure connection feels unfamiliar, uncomfortable, or maybe even threatening. This internal sabotage can manifest as an inability to fully trust a partner, a tendency to instinctively push people away when intimacy deepens.
Like the avoidance style.
Exactly. Or an overwhelming and often irrational fear of abandonment, like the anxious style. Or just a chronic feeling of emotional unfulfillment, even when a partner is trying their absolute best to provide love and security.
So the wound is internal, not necessarily caused by the partner.
Often, yes. This internal emotional turmoil, this unresolved wound from the inner child, then often causes one or both partners to unconsciously look elsewhere, maybe to seek external validation, fleeting comfort, or simply an escape from the deep-seated internal discomfort they can't articulate or resolve.
And that leads to cheating.
This looking elsewhere tragically and frequently leads to infidelity. So, from this profound psychological perspective, for a vast majority of people, cheating isn't simply a random act of malice. It's often a symptom of a deep-rooted issue that needs to be addressed internally.
Hmm.
Otherwise, it merely perpetuates cycles of toxicity, a breakdown in genuine connection, and inevitably deep pain for all involved. However,
There's a but.
there is a but. While the fields of psychology and attachment theory offer incredibly deep and nuanced insights into the complexities of human behavior, it's also absolutely crucial to acknowledge that not every instance of infidelity stems from complex psychological trauma, deeply rooted attachment issues, or an undeveloped inner child.
Okay.
There's another, often simpler yet equally painful reality to consider, which brings us to what one might call the direct choice, or perhaps the lack of integrity factor.
You're absolutely right. As much as we delve into the intricate psychological underpinnings, it's vital to acknowledge that not all cheating can or should be explained away by complex childhood trauma or deeply ingrained attachment patterns. Sometimes. Well, sometimes the straightforward and perhaps harder truth to confront is that a person simply makes a conscious choice that demonstrates a profound lack of integrity.
Mm-hmm. The character issue, maybe?
Or they are, in that moment, simply not a good person for that particular relationship. This implies a more deliberate choice, a conscious act of betrayal, and it's a reality we cannot ignore or over-psychologize away.
It's important to hold space for that possibility, too.
Definitely. This scenario typically plays out when someone simply sees what they perceive as better and jumps at it because they want it. They might encounter someone new who offers a different kind of excitement, maybe a perceived higher social status, novel validation, or just a temporary thrill.
The grass is greener syndrome.
Kind of, yeah. And instead of showing respect and integrity by ending their current relationship, they consciously choose to pursue this new interest while still keeping their current partner around.
Hedging their bets.
Exactly why. Often it's for continued validation, a security blanket for their ego, for comfort, for convenience, or maybe because they simply lack the courage, empathy, or moral fiber to face the discomfort, responsibility, and potential backlash of an honest breakup.
It's using the current partner.
It's a deeply selfish act, yeah. Using one person as a safety net or emotional resource while actively exploiting and betraying another. And this, to me, is the particularly unsettling part.
What's that?
This kind of infidelity isn't just a fleeting feeling or an unmet need that spirals out of control because of unconscious psychological patterns. While those things can be present here, it's often a fundamental issue of commitment and character.
A deliberate violation.
It feels like it. It's a deliberate choice to violate trust, frequently with full awareness of the immense pain it will cause, because their own immediate gratification, their ego boost, or their avoidance of discomfort takes overwhelming precedence over their partner's well-being or the integrity of the relationship.
Which speaks volumes.
It really does. It speaks to a significant lack of empathy, a profound immaturity in valuing others, and a disregard for the foundational principles of a committed partnership.
That's a really important and often overlooked distinction, because while understanding underlying psychological drives is crucial for fostering empathy and maybe guiding self-improvement.
Right, it doesn't excuse everything.
Exactly. It's also absolutely vital not to over-psychologize every instance of infidelity. Sometimes the explanation is indeed far simpler, as you articulated. This perspective highlights the aspect of validation seeking or convenience in a very stark and uncomfortable way.
Yeah, it's not a good look.
Not at all. It's a profound disrespect towards a partner to keep them around as an emotional backup, a safety net, while actively exploring or committing to options elsewhere. This isn't necessarily a psychological glitch or a cry for help from a wounded inner child. Sometimes it's a clear indication of a choice driven by profound self-interest, impulsivity, or just a lack of emotional maturity in handling commitment.
Commitment as a choice, not just a feeling.
It powerfully reinforces the idea that commitment, at its very core, is a choice. It's not merely an emotional state that comes and goes based on fleeting feelings or external circumstances. It's an ongoing action, a continuous decision to invest in, honor, and uphold the boundaries of the relationship.
Even when it's hard.
Especially when it's hard, or when challenges arise or temptations appear. And when that commitment is fundamentally lacking or deliberately violated for selfish reasons, it's not always a plea from a deeply wounded psyche. Sometimes it's a clear indication of character, maybe a different moral framework, or a profound immaturity regarding the responsibilities and mutual respect inherent in a partnership.
Okay, so we've covered the deep psychological roots, the communication breakdowns, and also this element of direct choice or lack of integrity.
A pretty comprehensive look at the why.
Yeah, but having thoroughly explored both the complex psychological drivers and the more straightforward reasons for infidelity, let's now shift our focus entirely to what you, the listener, can proactively do.
Moving towards solutions.
Exactly. What are the tangible, actionable steps we can all take to build healthier, more secure relationships and hopefully avoid these painful scenarios altogether?
This is the crucial part, really.
I think so too.
That's
This
right.
is where we empower you, the listener, and it starts with what I believe is the single most crucial first step: deep introspection.
Knowing thyself.
Knowing thyself. For so many people, especially if you didn't grow up in that, storybook environment with two perfectly tuned, consistently loving parents who navigated every challenge with grace, which, let's be honest, is an ideal hardly anyone lives up to.
A very few, yeah.
You probably haven't been shown what a truly good relationship looks like or how to healthily maintain one through its inevitable ups and downs. The blueprint just wasn't quite there.
You have to figure it out yourself.
You do. So the first and most vital step is truly about looking inward with brutal honesty. You need to become deeply aware of your own potential relational patterns and unresolved issues.
What are your patterns?
Exactly. Do you find yourself consistently exhibiting patterns that stem from unresolved parental dynamics, often colloquially referred to as daddy issues or mommy issues?
Mm-hmm.
Are you grappling with chronic anxiety in relationships, an underlying inferiority complex, a deep fear of abandonment, or any other unaddressed insecurities?
It's stuff we carry with us.
Right. Whatever the case may be, you need to become, at the very least, profoundly aware of these internal landscapes before you dive headfirst into committed dating. Because if you don't undertake this self-awareness work, you're almost guaranteed to stumble, to repeat old, unhelpful patterns, to get hurt, and then you risk becoming one of those jaded, love-is-dead types who thinks every relationship is doomed for failure.
The cycle continues.
Exactly. Understanding your own emotional baggage and attachment style is the absolute foundational prerequisite for healthy dating and partnership. It's the only way to genuinely break cycles.
That introspection is not just vital, it's non-negotiable, I'd say. Because it's the primary way to identify and begin to heal those deeply rooted insecurities, those dented parts of your inner child, those unconscious manifestations of insecure attachment.
The things driving the bus sometimes.
Right. That might otherwise unconsciously sabotage your relationships, leading you or your partner to look for external solace. Without understanding your own stuff, you're effectively walking into a partnership blindfolded, bringing unexamined patterns and emotional triggers that will inevitably affect your interactions and often create the very problems you fear.
So self-awareness first.
Absolutely. Noting yourself, understanding your own relational triggers and needs is not just a good idea. It's a prerequisite for engaging in healthy dating and building a truly secure and resilient partnership.
Okay, so step one, introspection. What's next?
Once you have that foundational self-awareness, the next step, which is often the hardest for a lot of people, is learning to truly verbalize your problems and emotions directly to your partner.
Communication. Back to that again.
Back to communication. This
Yep.
is communication mastery, and it's frequently the primary lacking component in struggling relationships. Ironically, it's a very skill that could prevent so much pain and betrayal.
It sounds simple, but it's clearly not easy.
It's not easy at all for many people. But think about it. In a potentially lifelong partnership between two people, you should feel completely safe and empowered to express your emotions, your needs, your concerns, and work out issues together.
That's the ideal.
It is. It doesn't matter if you're a man, a woman, or anyone else. If you feel upset, if your needs aren't being met, if something is bothering you with the person you could spend your life with, you absolutely must work it out with them, directly and respectfully.
Not around them or without them.
Precisely. The common tendency to confide only in friends, to avoid direct confrontation, or to passively bottle things up, as we discussed earlier, is incredibly destructive.
Why is talking to friends so bad, though? Isn't support good?
Support is good, but venting isn't solving. You don't need to run off and vent to your friends, sharing only your biased side of the story, because while that might provide temporary emotional release or validation,
It feels good in the moment.
it does. But it does nothing to fix the core issue within your relationship. Your partner is the person you're most vulnerable with. the one in whose presence your inner child feels safest to emerge. Therefore, that's precisely where the hard conversations need to happen, no matter how uncomfortable or awkward it feels in the moment. This direct, open, and brave communication is the lifeblood of a healthy, secure connection. It builds trust and shows that you value the relationship enough to face discomfort for its betterment.
Okay, so introspection, then
Yeah.
direct communication. What's the third piece?
Well, building on that.
Sorry, go
Okay,
here.
no, please.
Just gonna say, building on that, the final, difficult, but absolutely necessary step for your own well-being is about setting clear, healthy boundaries and knowing when to make the courageous decision to leave a relationship.
Knowing your deal breakers
Uh,
and acting on them.
Exactly. This is fundamentally about self-respect and self-preservation. If you've diligently done your introspection, you've courageously attempted to verbalize your problems directly to your partner, and you've given them a genuine chance to acknowledge and address the issues.
You've done your part?
Right. But they consistently aren't making a sincere effort to fix the issue, or they haven't delivered on their commitment to change, then you simply cannot continue to make excuses for them. At that point, you have to do yourself the ultimate service and save yourself from further emotional turmoil and wasted time.
That takes immense courage.
It does. You must be prepared to walk away. As we've emphasized throughout this deep dive, a profound and consistent sense of safety, trust, and a strong emotional connection are not just desirable traits. They are crucial and mandatory for any healthy long-term relationship.
Non-negotiables.
Non-negotiables. This is especially true because with your partner, you are at your most vulnerable, allowing that inner child to emerge. You should never, ever feel invalidated, gaslit, or made to feel like you're overreacting or getting upset for no reason.
Trust your feelings.
Yes. There is always a reason for your feelings, likely a deep-seated, insecure reason stemming from your attachment history or core needs, but a valid reason nonetheless. Your feelings are important signals. They point to something that needs attention, discussion, and resolution.
It's vital that you develop the self-awareness and strength not to allow yourself to fall into those self-destructive patterns of withdrawing emotionally, avoiding communication for days on end, or only venting to others who are external to the problem and cannot actually help solve the issue with your partner.
Right. Keeping the focus on the relationship itself.
Exactly. If you clearly communicate your needs, you articulate the issues, and the other person consistently proves they're unwilling or unable to meet those needs or to genuinely contribute to the security and health of the relationship, then you absolutely need to develop the courage to leave that situation.
Even when it's incredibly hard.
I know intimately how daunting it can feel to even contemplate ending a relationship, to cut ties with someone with whom you've built significant memories and shared experiences. Your mind will race.
Playing the highlight reel.
Totally. Thinking about all the good times, desperately trying to salvage something that is fundamentally broken or lacking.
Yeah.
But you have to remind yourself of an empowering truth. There are billions of people on this planet.
Perspective.
Billions. Millions of whom could be just as, if not more, compatible with you than the person you're currently with. If your fundamental needs for safety, for deep connection, for mutual respect, and for clear communication aren't being met, and the other person has consistently proven they aren't committed to fulfilling those needs,
Then it's time to go.
then you have too much self-worth and too much life ahead of you to tolerate that. The more you disrespect yourself by tolerating harmful, insecure patterns, the more negative consequences, emotional pain, and precious wasted time will accumulate in your life. Your self-worth demands that you prioritize your own well-being and relational security above all else.
Wow. That's a powerful call to action. So to bring it all together, what we've truly unpacked today is that infidelity is far more complex than it often appears on the surface.
Much more complex.
It's rarely a random act, and for a significant majority of individuals, it's deeply rooted in profound psychological patterns like our attachment styles, which were formed in early childhood, and the powerful, often unconscious influence of our inner child.
Those foundational pieces.
Right. These deep-seated patterns then manifest as the critical communication breakdowns and unaddressed insecurities that we see so often unraveling relationships. While we acknowledge that some instances of infidelity stem from simpler, more direct choices of character,
We held space for that too.
yes, but the underlying psychological factors play an immense pervasive role for most.
It seems clear.
But the truly empowering news, I think, is that understanding these patterns offers us a clear, actionable pathway forward. It underscores the immense, non-negotiable importance of deep introspection, truly understanding your own historical baggage, your insecurities, your relational triggers,
Hmm.
alongside the absolute necessity of open, direct, and brave communication with your partner. And finally, it highlights the unwavering importance of self-respect, setting clear, healthy boundaries, and being courageous enough to walk away from a relationship that consistently fails to serve your fundamental need for safety, connection, and mutual growth.
It's a roadmap, really.
It feels like it. This deep dive has genuinely shed light on some profound and often overlooked truths about human connection, offering not just understanding, but yeah, a roadmap for building healthier bonds.
Indeed. And knowledge about these deep psychological patterns doesn't just empower you to understand the why behind infidelity, moving beyond surface-level blame or confusion. It also provides you with the crucial insight and agency to consciously choose and build relationships.
To be more intentional.
Exactly. It allows you to seek connections grounded in secure attachment, fostered by open and honest dialogue, and built upon a foundation of mutual respect and trust, rather than unconsciously repeating old, unhealthy dynamics,
Breaking the cycle.
breaking the cycle. So, maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Considering these profound insights, how might consciously cultivating self-awareness and direct vulnerable communication not just prevent the pain of infidelity in your own life, but fundamentally transform the depth, resilience, and genuine joy of all your important connections?